Hey there! Today we're going to be talking about this pen. I saw people use this online and everybody was super enthusiastic about it, so I thought I should get one too. This is the Majohn Q1. You see them in a couple of different brands. I've also seen it as the Moonman Q1, and this is supposedly a pen. I have not found it to be a pen, but everybody loves it, so I thought I should do a review of it. It's a small pen, almost verbatim as to the body, a copy of an old Tombow pen called the Tombow Egg. And every time I say that, someone's going to be like, "Nee, but then on the left there is a micrometer different and you cannot call it a copy because..." I don't care. It is a copy of the Tombow Egg with minimal differences. The end of the section is a little different, the nib is very different, but the basic shape down to the clip is a Tombow Egg, period. I will cover the parts of the pen, I'll do a writing sample, and I'll tell you what I like, not much, and what I don't like about it. Let's get started. Okay, here we go with the Majohn Q1. So this is a Chinese pen, basically a copy of the Tombow Egg, but with a slightly different section. The Tombow Egg has kind of ribs here, and the Tombow Egg has a completely different nib. But as to the body, down to this ring, down to the clip, the entire shape and size, it's almost a one-on-one copy of that Tombow pen. I paid for this $19.59, that is US, and with shipping it was $20.58. That is not nothing, but as fountain pens go, that's relatively inexpensive, I would say. Let's have a look at this pen right next to a Pilot Metropolitan. So it's certainly a girthy pen, and that's because this pen was designed to help people with arthritis. The original Tombow, there was a sort of movement. There were a number of Japanese manufacturers who did similar things. I reviewed one many years ago, I think that is at this point close to a decade ago, I think called the Jumbo pen, which was a bit longer in my recollection, but also very girthy, and it really was to help people with arthritis. So I think that's a very nice initiative to do that. The pen came in a box. I think this is all I have to say about the pen for now. I'll show you the parts in just a second. This is the box. Fairly cute cardboard outer box. I particularly enjoyed Feel the Temperature of Writing. We will move on with instructions on how to fill the pen. This is for all kinds of different plunger converter, vacuum converter, but this pen is really just an eyedropper. So don't believe there's going to be any fancy filling system. There was the little plastic bag that tore as I opened it, so I'll throw that out straight away. And then there is the eyedropper. Basically you buy a $20 eyedropper because the pen doesn't really work. That was my experience. Thank you for watching. No, we'll get back to that. So let's look at the parts of the pen, right? There are different finishes available. I got the clear because I thought it would be kind of cute. We have on top here the finial, which is nice and very much looks like a lens, which I thought was kind of cute. We have this clip, the clip functions. Then we have the center band, which is engraved Majohn, and then there's nothing else on the back end there. We have the barrel, and I took out here a 5 milliliter sample vial, and if you look at that and you look at this barrel, you can see that I think it's approximately the same diameter. Now you can see there is quite a volume of ink in there. This is a failure on my part. I forgot to measure the actual volume, but I'm sure there are viewers out there who have done their due diligence. But as I said, multiple milliliters of ink, right? It's a chunky body. Okay, cap unscrews, 2 turns. Then you have the nib. The section tapers down, flares out a little bit. These are actually threads. Downside to that is that if you were to put this in a bottle of ink gets into these threads, but because it's an eyedropper filled pen, that's not really an issue, which I thought was quite nice. Okay, we have here the extra fine nib. It is engraved Majohn. No, sorry, it's engraved Moonman. As I said earlier, you can actually see these with different brands, so it's the Moonman nib. You get a plastic feed. It looks like a number 6 nib, but it's always a little deceptive when you put it. Would we call that number 6? I think that's pretty close to number 6. I don't think that's a number 5, but I'll try to pull it out later and try to comment on that on the website. Okay, so pen, obviously tiny, not really meant to be used unposted, but it does post pretty securely too. And then you have I wouldn't necessarily call it a full-size pen, but you have a very usable pen, nice size, definitely very girthy, but that was of course the point of the design of this pen. Okay, let's see if it writes. We have here some Rhodia paper. I'll zoom out a little bit and I shall start to write. No pressure. We have an extra fine nib and the ink is platinum carbon black. So, great performance, outstanding. This nib is way too wet, and that is because the nib slit is so tight that nothing will pass. So once I start to exert pressure, the pen starts to write, suggesting again that that nib slit is just too tight. This is not necessarily a hard fix, but obviously for the review I wanted to show you how the pen came out of the box. Out of the box, the writing is atrocious. It barely writes if you don't exert pressure. Again, I'm writing without any pressure here, and you'll be able to read, if you're lucky, maybe 50% of the words you try to write. I'll zoom in to show you that I'm not kidding. Like, most of the letters are missing because the nib is way too dry. Okay, let's do some fast writing, shall we? Yeah, so that was another massively useful demonstration. Let's see how wet it is. Nothing. Line variation, well, there is no line, so there is nothing to vary. If I exert more pressure, we certainly get somewhere, which shows me that the nib definitely has potential. It just needs a slit that is considerably less tight, which shall be fixed after the video is over. And perhaps there should be some sort of re-review at that point, but right now the pen is unusable. Okay, you could certainly write with some line variation, which I think is very nice. The tines are relatively thin near the end, so be very careful, it's not a flex nib, but you could squeeze out some line variation. What about reverse writing? Well, given that you can't see the writing under normal circumstances, I doubt that you can see him this way, and that is with a bit of pressure. Now I'm thinking that because I give some pressure on this, that makes it write better. In any case, this is what we have. Okay, this is with light pressure. Now we're getting somewhere, but a fountain pen, as we know, should write under no pressure, like say this Le Bon, which, as I'm just holding it in my hand, will write. Okay, let's talk about the $20 of my life that I shall never get back, and likes and dislikes. What do I like and what do I not like about the Majohn Q1? It's relatively inexpensive. I mean, I paid $19.59 for it US. There was a little bit of shipping, $20.58 with shipping. That is certainly not terribly expensive. The positivity ends there. It's an odd looking pen, and that has its own charm. I will give it that. It's different looking, but it's not Majohn's design, it's Tombow's design. Given that those Tombow pens are not necessarily super easy to get, I don't think there's necessarily anything wrong with it at this point. Just be aware that it's not an original design. The idea of a pen that is designed to help people with arthritis is very nice. All the way back, this is a very long time ago, I reviewed a Japanese pen that had the same sort of features, a very girthy pen, and I think that's very nice. I think that to me probably is the nicest thing about the pen, that it is designed to help out people with arthritis to be able to have them write with a fountain pen without suffering from pain or discomfort. Now, at a moment like this, I would like to say I will give them that. It is a pen, but it's not, because it doesn't write. It's a piece of plastic that holds ink and is roughly cylinder shaped, and that's really all it is. So I don't get the great love for this online. It doesn't write. So I probably got a lemon, and that concerns me. If, as a reviewer, I receive something like this, I have to point out that unfortunately it did not write. Now, granted, making a nib a little wetter is not super difficult. Making a nib a little smoother is not super difficult. But be prepared that if you purchase this, you'll have to perform that type of operation on the pen, because it is likely not to write. I have one here that did not write. Now, for other people it did write, so clearly the quality control is all over the place. This is the landscape of fountain pens these days, even with expensive brands, so I guess we can come to expect that. However, for a pen to hardly write at all, that to me is a little different from it doesn't write the way I would like it to write. I mean, with no pressure it doesn't write. So yeah, there is that. So much for that. What else? For longer writing sessions, I really can't say I find it comfortable. I like a bigger pen, I like a girthier pen, I have no issue with that, but it is a very odd proportion, and I just haven't found this comfortable to use for an extended period of time. For shorter sessions, sure. Why not? The final thing I will say, that because that is somewhat subjective, the final thing I will say that I think is a more objective criticism is this pen came completely unprepared to be eyedroppered. So you have to supply your own silicone grease. If you don't, there will be leakage. I know this because I experienced it. I took it out of my bag at work the first time the day after I had inked it, and the cap was filled with ink. There was ink all over the section because it had just seeped through the threads, which came without any type of lubrication or silicone grease on it. So be aware of that as well. You are expected to do that because the company has now done it for you. That's fine, but just know what to expect, that you have to do that. I have seen this in other manufacturers, for example in, who am I thinking of? I think I've seen it in certain pens from Edison, certainly, that kind of come pre-greased, excuse me, and therefore you can eyedropper them straight away and you have no issues with them. But anyway, I certainly don't mean to be super negative, but I really can't say I've had a positive experience with this pen, and I find it very fascinating that there is such a love for this pen online. Well, it's clearly a piece of crap. At least the one I received is really not great. So there is that. I would love to hear your experiences because, as I said, people love them. So tell me what you love about them and why it's not a piece of crap. Because I'm not convinced. This is what I have for today. I hope this was useful, and I'll gladly see you later. Bye!